So good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Good to see you. This is our third class in our investigation of the illumination of the intent. And we're going to begin with a couple of prayers, and Sheila's going to put those up. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, so I'll, and if you'd like to join in the chanting, or even if you're muted, you can chant to yourself. We'll do once in Tibetan and then 2 more times in English. Sangye chodang soki chognam la jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunen gipe sognam gi drola panchir sangye drupa sho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrators, migrating beings. And then as a condensation of all of the methods to generate merit, well, there's one more recitation. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. And as a condensation of all the methods of accumulating merit, mandala is often offered at the beginning. So if you move that up a little bit, by offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. And before dismissing the mudra of the mandala, there's a request. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radham Mandalakam Niyatayami. Okay, thank you. So good to see you all. I asked if anyone had any questions in the little period before we began the recording, but some of you have come since then. If anyone has a question that has been burning in their mind since last week, feel free.
Venerable, can you
Definitely,
just give me a working definition of the word? And I'm going to mispronounce it. Gnosis. What does he mean by that? Gnosis? Thank you.
Gnosis, right. So, in English, we have some words that are derived from that, like the word know, K-N-O-W, right? To know. Gnosis is what, guys? Latin or Greek? I can't remember.
I believe it's Greek.
It's Greek, is it?
I believe so.
Yes, it's Greek.
Yes. Okay. So Gnosis is another word for a deep knowledge, right? It's kind of a synonym of wisdom. So when we talk about the different kinds of wisdom that the bodhisattvas have, one of the common ones is prajna. You've heard of that before, right? Prajna, in Tibetan, we say sherab. There are a lot of people, common Tibetan name, sherab. So prajna, like Prajna Paramita Sutra, means wisdom. And a deeper kind of wisdom is the Sanskrit word jnana, like you would write J with an N with an umlaut over the top, you know, like in Spanish, ANA, jnana. That is equivalent to the Tibetan word yeshe, like Lama yeshe. So that is similar to gnosis. So sometimes in the text, when they talk about, sometimes they just say wisdom. Sometimes they say gnosis. So that differentiates that deeper kind of wisdom that in Sanskrit is called jnana, or in Tibetan yeshe. Does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's also the same root in Proto-Indo-European.
As jnana. Yeah, that's what I think. So
And in
and
Bengali, for example, you spell it with a G, with a G sound, not with a J, you know. So
right. Thanks for pointing that out. So okay, anyone else have a burning question? Okay. So just to sort of to review a little bit, we talked about last time how the Madhyamaka Avatara, the text written by Chandrakirti, supplements or enhances the fundamental wisdom, because Madhyamaka Avatara, remember, some people translate it as entering into the middle way, and some translate it as supplement to the middle way. And there's a reason for that. It's sort of both meanings are implied. How does the Madhyamaka Avatara, that the karikas, the verses that Chandrakirti wrote, and his auto commentary to those verses, how do they enter into the fundamental wisdom? That's what's meant by the middle way. We went over a lot of detail last time. When it's talking about the middle way here, it's talking about the text by Nagarjuna called Fundamental Wisdom. There we are. So I'm going to look at everyone here. How can I see that? Oh, here we go. Okay, I thought I could. I wanted to see everyone's faces. How can I get back to that point?
You click on view and then choose gallery.
Okay, I'm sorry to view gallery. So okay, I can't get that anywhere.
Let me try something here.
Participants.
Upper right. Does that help?
Now I'm just seeing the person who's talking. Okay, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Well,
I wanted to be able to be, before I could see the whole screen, the whole grid with everyone's faces. If you can put it back like that, Sheila.
and if people want to see just you on the big screen, they can just pin Venerable George. You can click on the Venerable George's picture, and there's 3 buttons or something, and then you can pin him, and then you'll see him as a big picture.
Okay. So somehow.
There, we'll try the gallery again. Try clicking on the gallery view and see if that helps.
No, I'm not
George,
getting.
up in the very right-hand corner of your screen is a little thing that says view. If you click on that, then you'll see choices. You can choose gallery.
There's show grid view, show thumbnail video. It's been turned off somehow. If it was possible to go back, I'm really sorry. Okay.
Venerable George, sometimes you have to move your cursor over the window to make the controls pop up.
Yeah, I'm moving. I see those, but the only controls I have are show grid video, show thumbnail video, show active speaker video, and hide thumbnail video.
It's probably either grid or what was the other one? Thumbnails. It's probably one of those.
When I click grid, I just see a couple of people there. So, okay, doesn't matter.
But Venerable, what do you see on the top right? The first, without pressing on anything.
I see two little pictures of Sheila and Diana, and I see you as the main screen right now.
Oh, you're not on your computer then?
I am on my computer.
On the top right of the screen of the Zoom screen, you don't see view?
Nope.
Because you have to move the cursor.
Well,
It may be because they're recording and they've pinned you to the.
yeah, okay, whatever. Just a minute ago, I was able to see everyone.
Well, you could try logging out and logging back in and see what happens.
I'll just leave it. What I like to be able to do is see everyone's faces to see when people have questions, if they raise their hands and everything. Right now, I can't see that because all these things. Okay, this is a diversion, so I'm gonna just leave that.
Venerable George?
Yes.
At the end of the teaching, if you want, we can set you up with something that allows Sheila to remote in and actually move your cursor and do things like that for you, if you wish.
Okay. Generally, I'm okay. Okay, now I have to move all of this around. Okay. Okay, I can get a better view now. Okay, so sorry about that. The way that the Madhyamaka Vatara supplements the fundamental wisdom is in two ways, in terms of supplementing it in terms of the profound and supplementing it in terms of the vast. So contrary to what some people think, it supplements the fundamental wisdom in terms of the profound, not by showing more reasonings, because fundamental wisdom has many, many reasonings to establish emptiness, but it supplements the profound in a couple of ways that Lama Tsongkhapa mentions, in terms of showing that the Prasangika view that's expounded in the Madhyamaka Vatara is unique, is distinctive, especially from the Chittamatra and the Svatantrika Madhyamaka views. And also, as it mentions about something called dependent designation, the way that it enters into or supplements the fundamental wisdom in terms of the profound is talking about the three, what do we say here? The three special methods of the learner stage that we were talking about last time, like talking about compassion, non-dual awareness, and bodhicitta, and talking about the stages, the 10 bhumis of the learner stage. When we say learner stage, that means the stage before no more learning meaning Buddhahood in the case of the Bodhisattvas. So that's more or less where we finished last time. We talked about the translator's homage, meaning the translator of Madhyamaka Vatara from Sanskrit into Tibetan. So that was, I pay homage to the youthful Manjushri, or as Jimpa says, the gentle Lord Manjushri. Then the meaning of the treatise itself, that's where we are. This has 4 sections. The salutation, or the, what could we call, what does Jeffrey Coppins calls, expression of worship. This is often one of the initial kinds of statements. the actual body of the treatise, second, the manner in which the treatise was composed, that will be way at the end of the text, and dedicating the merits of having composed the treatise. So right now, the salutation, or the expression of worship, which is a means of entering into the task of composing the text, or beginning to compose the text. So there are two different ways that there is this salutation: praising great compassion without differentiating its characteristics, and paying homage to great compassion by differentiating its characteristics. Praise of great compassion without differentiating, and homage to that compassion within differentiating its types, Jeffrey Hopkins translates. So what is this talking about? So the text says, the Reverend Chandrakirti, or Honorable Chandrakirti, who for the purpose of entering the middle way, wished to compose entering the middle way, did not take as his object of salutation the Sravikas and Pratika Buddhas, who have been objects of salutation in other texts. So you know who they are. The Sravikas are what we translate into English as the hearers, and the Pratika Buddhas are what we call the solitary Buddhas, or you could say solitary realizers, because in the name Pratika Buddha, Buddha doesn't necessarily mean a fully enlightened being. It has roots to the Sanskrit word for knowing. So that will be coming as we go along. So he doesn't pay homage to the solitary realizers or the hearers. And furthermore, in relation to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, he pays homage to great compassion, the first perfect cause of Buddhahood, characterized by total rescuing or protection of all sentient beings bereft of refuge and caught in the prison of cyclic existence, and the principal cause designated by the name of its effect, the Blessed Mother. So furthermore, with regard to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it is great compassion that he wished to demonstrate is more worthy of praise. To that end, Chandrakirti wrote the two stanzas beginning with the line, Sravikas and middle-level Buddhas. Or you can say, hearers and middling realizers of suchness are born from the kings of subduers, or from the Munendra. Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas. They are born from the Bodhisattvas. The mind of compassion, non-dual understanding, and the altruistic mind of enlightenment are the causes of the children of the conquerors, or the Galway say, we say. So, what's the point here? Chandrakirti didn't take as a salutation at the beginning, praising the other kinds of great adherents, practitioners, the hearers or solitary realizers, nor the bodhisattvas or the Buddhas. What he did was to praise great compassion, which indirectly implies praise to all of the others. So great compassion, maybe you know, does anyone know what it is in Sanskrit? I know a couple of you know some Sanskrit.
Mahakaruna.
Mahakaruna, yeah. Karuna Ketan is teaching some courses at Shantideva these days. Karuna means compassion. Maha means great. Mahakaruna. So why does he praise, pay homage to great compassion? because it is the first perfect cause of Buddhahood, or as Jeffrey Hopkins translated it a little bit different, he said it's the most excellent cause of Buddhahood. The word first can mean, first in a series, or it can also mean, foremost. So the foremost perfect cause of Buddhahood, which itself is characterized, Buddhahood itself is characterized by the total rescuing of all sentient beings who are lacking refuge, bereft of refuge. They have no protection from the sufferings of cyclic existence. Like you would take refuge under the bus kiosk when it's raining outside, right? So refuge in a sense of some kind of protection from suffering, characterized by the total rescuing of all sentient beings bereft of refuge and caught in the prison of cyclic existence. Those of you who've studied some of our courses before, there are various analogies to cyclic existence. One of them being cyclic existence is like an unbearable prison. Another is like it's a great ocean where you're flailing around and have no protection for yourself. Characterized by the total rescuing of all sentient beings bereft of refuge and caught in the prison of cyclic existence. And great compassion is the principal cause designated by the name of its effect, the Blessed Mother. What does that mean? In Chandrakirti's text, he talks about, in Sanskrit, he says Bhagavati. You know the word Bhagavan? Bhagavan, often Lama, in Tibetan, the Tibetans write Chom Den De. They have an etymology of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a word that can just mean the Lord or someone superior or someone who has certain great features. Bhagavati is the feminine of that. Like when we talk about the Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, it is given the name the Bhagavati because it is it's sort of like the mother aspect, the father and the mother. The Bhagavan, the Bhagavati is sort of something common to all of the hearers, solitary realizers, bodhisattvas, and Buddhas. Sort of the mother of the Buddhas of the three times. So it is designated by the name of its effect. So sometimes we give names to things, like we give name to here to great compassion as the Bhagavati, because the Bhagavati or total enlightenment and so forth is a result of great compassion. So Jimpa says that he wished to demonstrate it is more worthy of praise than the other, the solitary, the hearers, solitary realizers, bodhisattvas or Buddhas, because it's something that is indicating them in the future. To that end, Chandrakirti wrote the two stanzas beginning with the line Sravikas and middle-level Buddhas, or rather than saying middle-level Buddhas, the text says hearers and middling realizers of suchness. So this is coming. So you can see just a little further down in the page there where it says Sravikas and middle-level Buddhas arise from the sovereign sages. So this has two sections: how compassion is the principal cause of bodhisattvas, and how compassion is also the root of the other two causes of bodhisattvas. So here we're still on the section of praising great compassion without differentiating its characteristics. Differentiating its characteristics we'll be talking about in a couple of pages. So how compassion is the principal cause of bodhisattvas, and how compassion is the root of the other causes, the other two causes of bodhisattvas. So how compassion is the principal cause of bodhisattvas? This has three parts. How Sravikas and Pratika Buddhas are born from sovereign sages. And how, second, how Buddhas are born from bodhisattvas. And the three principal causes of bodhisattvas. Okay. So here in this first outline, how Sravikas and Pratika Buddhas are born from sovereign sages. The actual Sanskrit word that is being translated by sovereign sages is Munendra. Have you heard that term before, Munendra? You know Muni, like Shakya Muni, right? Muni can mean sage or subduer or controller. Like the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha, Spaha, right? Muni. Oh, control, control, great control, may it be, you could say. So Muni can mean subduer, someone that subdues the problems or controls things, or you could just call it a Muni. Someone who is a Muni would be a sage, someone who is, wise and so forth. So Munendra is a term that refers just to the fully enlightened Buddhas. Indra, you may know, one of the Sanskrit gods, one of the Vedic gods. So sort of the powerful one. Indra also, in his various grammatical variations, can mean power. Like when we talk about the faculties, we call about the indriya. The eye faculty is that which empowers eye consciousness to be able to see its object and so forth. So Indra can mean powerful or Lord and so forth. Here, Jimpa is choosing to say sovereign sages for Munendra. So sages, of Munendra, the Muni he takes as sages, and the Indriya or Indra he takes as sovereign. Jeffrey Hopkins translates it as the king of subduers. So how Sravikas and Pratika Buddhas are born from the Munendra? Okay, how is it? They listen to perfect instructions from others. So when we're talking about why are they called Sravikas? They listen. That's from the Sanskrit word shru, which has to do with listening or hearing. They listen to perfect instructions from others, meaning the Buddhas. And as a fruit of their meditation, once they have attained Sravaka enlightenment, once they have attained the nirvana of a Sravaka, they then enable others to hear that truth. So they hear teachings from the Buddhas, and once they achieve their goals, they cause others to hear about that fact that they have achieved their goal. Here it says that they've about that truth. Hence, they are known as Srabakas, hearers. The manner in which they enable others to hear is found repeatedly in such scriptural statements as, "Thus I have completed my task. I will know no lives beyond this one." Does that sound familiar to any of you? Have you heard things like that before? Stephanie's putting her finger up. So those of you who do Nyungne, or the 24-hour precepts, rather, you may know this book that is the ritual of the fasting practice of Avalokiteshvara. So in that has the Mahayana ordination, when we take the Mahayana 24-hour vows. Some people are familiar with that. It begins, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas residing in the 10 directions, please pay attention to me. Master, please pay attention to me. Just as the previous Tathagatas, foe destroyers, our hearts, perfectly completed Buddhas, who, like the divine wise horse and the great elephant, did what had to be done. That's essentially what we're talking about here. Thus, I have completed my task. I've done what had to be done and performed action, laid down the burden, meaning laid down the burden of the contaminated aggregates. So there are many kinds of statements like that. This is what's being referred to when you talk about hearers. It's not as though they hear the teaching from the Buddha about the Four Noble Truths, and then they cause others to hear about the Four Noble Truths. That's not the implication here. They're called hearers because they hear the teachings, they put them into practice, and then they tell others that I've achieved that goal. I have completed my task. I will know no lives beyond this one. In other words, I will take no longer rebirth within cyclic existence because I've achieved nirvana. Makes sense? Okay. Although this etymology of the word Sravaka does not apply to all Sravakas, such as those in the formless realm, this is not a problem. Why does it not apply to Sravakas in the formless realm? Anyone have an idea?
Because there's no sound in the formless realm?
There's no
To me,
sound.
Venerable George.
Yeah, there's no sound in the formless realm, right?
And they don't have ears.
And they don't have physical bodies, ears, and so forth, right? So is that a problem that you could call them Sravakas? No. For a term to be used as a noun in a practical context, it does not have to constitute the explanatory basis for the etymology of that term. What is this talking about? It sounds complicated. Let me read how Jeffrey Hopkins translates that same thing. Although there are some hearers, such as those in the formless realm, to whom this etymology does not apply, there's no fault, because the features of an etymology do not have to apply to all instances for a term to be used as an actual name. So the example that's being given here is the word lake-born, Saroruha. So in Tibetan we say Tsoke. Tso means lake, can mean lake or pond. Ke means born. So lotuses are poetically given that name. But some lotuses are not born from lakes, right? Some lotuses you can plant in the soil of your garden. You can have them growing, and not everything that is born from a lake is a lotus, right? What are born from lakes? Also seaweed, or scum on the surface, and fish. You might say fish are also born from lakes. So an etymology doesn't have to apply to all its instances to be used as an actual name. So you can. Another classic example is the word bhikshu. You know what bhikshu, right, is? Bhikshu means a fully ordained Buddhist monk. So in Tibetan, the way that the Tibetans took that word into Tibetan, they say gelong. Gewa means virtuous, longba means beggar. So you could say, for the Tibetans, the etymology that they chose was virtuous beggar, but not every, there are many beggars who may be virtuous that are not actual bhikshus, not actually fully ordained monks. And not all bhikshus are necessarily virtuous beggars. Some of them don't go begging. So, but once you get, the point is that any particular phenomena can be given any name. Once that name has been given and accepted in sort of popular thought, popular acceptance, that particular name indicates that particular thing. You can give an etymology for the name, like when we talk about waterborne as a name for lotus, but it doesn't necessarily have to apply to every example. It's just an etymology of how that name was chosen. Does it make sense? Okay. For example, the term lake-born sararua can refer to a lotus born on dry land. Alternatively, the etymology of the Sanskrit word Sravaka can be taken to be, quote, one who proclaims what was heard. By this explanation, Srabakas are so called because having heard from the Buddhas the path to travel to the highest truth of Buddhahood, they then proclaim it to those who are inclined toward the Mahayana and who seek the Mahayana path. So this is a separate etymology of Sravaka. One etymology of Sravakas, why they're called hearers, is they hear from the Buddha the path to lead to nirvana, to Sravaka nirvana. They put that into practice, and once they achieve their goal, they make others hear through the statements such as, "Thus I have completed my task. I will know no lives beyond this one," or as like in the Mahayana precepts where it says, "I've done what has to be done, laid down the burden of the contaminated aggregates." So there's similar kinds of statements like that. That's generally what's meant by hearers. So in some circumstances, some of the hearers, like say, for instance, in the Heart Sutra, who is the hearer in the Heart Sutra? Anyone know?
Shariputra.
Shariputra.
Yeah, Shariputra, come on. Shariputra is questioning Avalokiteshvara, right? Shariputra was foremost of the hearers in wisdom, and he's questioning Avalokiteshvara, how the bodhisattvas practice the perfection of wisdom. So there were many hearers who listened to Mahayana teachings, like Shariputra there, or as I mentioned last time about the Upali, the barber who was foremost amongst the Buddhist disciples in morality. He questioned Manjushri, I think, or one of the other bodhisattvas. How did the bodhisattvas, or questioned the Buddha, how did the bodhisattvas purify their infractions in the Sutra of the Three Heaps, the confession of the bodhisattvas' downfalls, the 35 Confession Buddha Sutra. So there are many hearers that were listening to Mahayana teachings, but their goal, they were still aiming for nirvana. They heard about the Mahayana teachings. They didn't put that into practice, but what they did was that they could use that knowledge to explain to other people who were inclined toward the Bodhisattva path what they had heard. So by this explanation, Sravikas are so called because having heard from the Buddhas the path to travel to the highest fruit of Buddhahood, the Mahayana teachings, they then proclaim it to those who are inclined toward the Mahayana and who are seeking that path. So there's the quotation from the White Lotus of the Good Dharma Sutra, right? The Sadharma Pundarika, I think, right? Is that right, Paul? Sadharma Pundarika? I think that's the white.
Yes.
Sometimes people just say the Lotus Sutra. So here, the quotation that Jimpa has translated, Savior, we heard and have become Sravikas today. We will proclaim perfectly the sublime awakening. We will utter thoroughly, too, the word of awakening. So we are like those formidable Sravikas. So who is this talking about? Is this talking about actual Hinayana Sravikas? Now, this is talking about bodhisattvas. So it's this savior, Lord. Let's see how it's Jeffrey Hopkins translated, "O protector, today we have become hearers," or Sravikas, right? We proclaim the excellent enlightenment and set forth the terms of enlightenment. So they've heard from the Buddhas, maybe the Prajnaparamita Sutra. This is talking about bodhisattvas, and they will explain it to others. And so thus we are like the formidable hearers. So one of the, there's a note in Jeffrey Hopkins' book called Meditation on Emptiness that I've shared with Sheila. Sheila, is that up on the, can people download that here? Sheila? Just press your space bar, and then I can hear you.
You can put it on the screen. I'm not sure. Otherwise, I can send it to everyone in an email. Do you want me to put it on the screen right now?
No, because it's several pages long. I just wanted people to be able to have a chance to access that. So in that, Jeffrey Hopkins notes at the end of Meditation on Emptiness, he talks about this verse from the Sadharma Pundarika. So Sad-dharma means the not just ordinary dharma, not like the loka dharma, not like the worldly dharmas. Sad-dharma means the holy dharma, right? Or good dharma, as Jimpa translates here. So this is talking about some bodhisattvas who they're making an analogy, because the actual Sravikas don't actualize the bodhisattva path. They hear the Mahayana teachings, but their main goal is to achieve nirvana. So they're just keeping that information. Maybe like some of us, we listen to these teachings. We may listen to teachings on Tantra, but our main goal is to practice the bodhisattva path. But we learn those things, and we can maybe we mention them to others that are interested in Tantra, but we ourselves have not practiced that. Maybe there's a similar kind of thing there. So these bodhisattvas are saying, today we have become hearers, we proclaim the excellent enlightenment and set forth the terms of enlightenment. Thus we are like the formidable hearers. So the note that you may be able to find that Sheila is going to send out to you, in an earlier translation, Jeffrey translated formidable as intractable hearers. So this was implying that the bodhisattvas were criticizing the hearers. But that note, if you have a chance to read that note, it's very, very interesting and goes into details about this. It mentions that some of the Tibetan commentators about this verse, this is like Jamyang Shepa, the great teacher, I think, in Gomang and so forth. He was his interpretation was that this was talking sort of putting down the hearers, but actually the word should be formidable. Thus, we are like the formidable hearers who themselves, are formidable. They're quite powerful. They've heard about the bodhisattva path, the path that leads to enlightenment. They don't practice it themselves, but they proclaim it to others. So these are two reasons or two grounds for calling someone a Sravaka. These two grounds for calling someone a Sravaka constitute for bodhisattvas the basis for their resemblance to Sravakas. While Sravakas themselves actually fit the name, one who proclaims what was heard. So when you say one who proclaims what was heard, that's not that's talking about the Sravakas hearing the Mahayana path and proclaiming it to others. They proclaim what they heard. The main meaning of Sravaka is someone who is puts into practice their Sravaka path. They achieve nirvana, and then they tell others, I've achieved nirvana, I'll have no births, no lives after this. Making some sense? Tendrin, what do you think? You listening? You've heard this before, Tendrin?
I've heard of it before, but that's because I've taken this class before. But yes, it does make sense. In fact, it's only made sense today. So
say again?
It's only made sense today. Your explanation makes it really clear. So
right.
Yeah.
So so bodhisattvas are similar to hearers in that respect. So when we talked about here, the hearers, the way that hearers and solitary realizers are born from the Munendra. That's the section that we are at right now. So some people, Jayananda in particular, the one Sanskrit individual, one Indian commentator to the Madhyamaka Vatara that wrote in Sanskrit, the gentleman who came to Tibet and either composed his commentary to the Madhyamaka Vatara in Tibet, or he at least oversaw the translation into Tibetan of it. Jayananda is the individual who Lama Tsongkhapa sometimes criticizes, sometimes praises for his commentary. In this case, he's going to criticize Jayananda. He says Jayananda in particular, because the word sublime is not mentioned explicitly in the third line of the above quote. What's the third line? We will utter thoroughly the word of awakening. So the second line said, we will proclaim perfectly sublime awakening. That means that Jayananda is saying that second line is referring to talking about, the teachings about enlightenment. We will utter thoroughly also the word of an awakening. So since that line doesn't have the word sublime explicitly, Jayananda says that the first awakening refers to that of the Mahayana, while the second one refers to the awakening of the Sravikas. But Lama Tsongkhapa says that's baloney. That's wrong. I don't know. Do you know what baloney means? American slang means it's not, it's cheap, it's not really that good. You'd rather have prosciutto or something else, roast beef or something. The understanding of the commentary, that means the Madhyamaka commentary, the Chandrakirti's own auto commentary, however, is to take the first awakening as referring to the awakening of the great vehicle, and the second to the path leading to that awakening. So he's, for those people who are studying Madhyamaka and Chandrakirti's commentary to that, and who also, besides reading Lama's own Khapa, are looking at Jayananda, they say, well, Jayananda says this is talking about proclaiming the Sravaka path. Lama's own Khapa says that's wrong. The second, in the third line, the second meaning of awakening here is talking about the path that leads to that awakening to Buddhahood. So, make clear? So continuing, some might wonder, bodhisattvas also hear the path to Buddhahood from the Buddhas and proclaim it to other trainees. Right? Bodhisattvas, well, the bodhisattvas that heard the various Prajna Paramita sutras from the Buddha, various Mahayana sutras, and then they explain that and they proclaim that to others. So bodhisattvas also hear the path to Buddhahood from the Buddhas and proclaim it to other trainees. Do they not also become Sravaka disciples? Remember the meaning of one of the meanings of Sravaka was to listen to the Mahayana teachings and then explain them to others. But that meaning of Sravaka meant those Sravakas didn't put them into practice like they did their own Sravaka teachings. They just explained them to others. Just as I said before, like, for instance, we may, even though our main practice may be the Bodhisattva practice, 6 perfections, we might hear teachings about Tantra, even though we don't put them into practice, but then with that knowledge, we explain them to others. It's kind of something similar there. So do those bodhisattvas who hear the path to Buddhahood and proclaim it to others, do they become Sravaka disciples? This is not a problem. Sravakas proclaim the Mahayana path, but do not practice it themselves, not even a facsimile of it, not even something similar to the Mahayana path. This then is the meaning of the term Sravaka. Okay, all together? Violet, what do you think? It makes sense?
Well, why? What's the function of telling somebody that you've accomplished something?
Oh, because that will encourage them. Like say, for instance, you go to trade school, you learn how to become an auto mechanic. Then you go out and you make lots of money, and you say, I went to Ron Klein's auto mechanic store, school, and now I'm making lots of money. You know, I did what had to be done, and now I'm making lots of money. So that encourages people to go to Ron's auto mechanic school. Okay, so here the Sravakas tell others, these teachings have a fruit. They are fruitful. They bring about a result of achieving enlightenment, of achieving nirvana. I practice those teachings. I achieve nirvana, and I will no longer take rebirth within cyclic existence. I've set down the load. I'll take no more rebirths again after this. Does that make sense, Ron? Okay. Good question. Okay.
But Venerable?
Yes. I'm here.
So, but you meant, okay, so maybe I misunderstood. You said that the Sravakas say that, they proclaim, so it says, they proclaim the Mahayana path, right? So but then they don't practice it, right? So it's not like saying that I went to Ron's auto mechanic school and I
That's the first meaning. That's
fruit.
Ron's, sorry, Ron. Ron's auto mechanic school is talking about the first general meaning of Sravaka. That is that they have heard the teachings from the Buddha, they put them into practice, they know that they've brought the result of nirvana, that they will no longer take rebirth, and they tell that to others so that others have confidence to follow that path. The second etymology of Sravaka has to do with the hearers who hear the Mahayana teachings, not the Sravaka teachings. They understand them, they don't put them into practice, and they explain them to others. So there's two different etymologies of Sravaka, okay? So with respect to the term Buddha, in middle level Buddhas, so where does that come from? When we talked about just earlier, Sravakas and middle level Buddhas arise from the sovereign sages, arise from the Munendra. Okay, so Jeffrey Hopkins translates that, however, as when the term Buddha is taken to mean realization of suchness, this applies to all three persons. Jimpa translates it as the suchness of a Buddha applies to all three persons. Let's see here. So I'll read from Jeffrey Hopkins' text. He puts in parentheses, so this is his explanation. In Chandrakirti's root text, middling realizers of suchness, which is what you would find in the Sanskrit, it's Tattva Buddha. They translated that into Tibetan as middling Buddhas rather than middling realizers of suchness. A little bit unclear from Jimpa's text. So if you were to see the actual Sanskrit that Chandrakirti wrote in that first stanza, Sravakas and middling realizers of suchness are born from the Munendra. Whereas when they translated that Sanskrit into Tibetan, they left off the word tattva in that place, which means suchness, and they just said middling Buddhas. Then that's sort of Jeffrey's commentary there. So he says, the actual Lama Tsongkhapa's text says, in the commentary, Chandrakirti's auto commentary, Chandrakirti says that Tattva Buddha applies to all three persons: solitary hearers, solitary realizers, and Buddha superiors. With regard to this, some identify Tattva Buddha as realization of suchness and apply to all three. As will be explained, this is a good interpretation because it is said Tattva means suchness or padhyata, and Buddha means realization. So let's go back now to what Jimpa is saying here. As is stated, Tattva refers to suchness, while Buddha means to realize within, konduchupa. Generally, when we talk about Buddha, we think of a person, right? But the word, the Sanskrit root for Buddha, one who is realized, realized one or enlightened one, there's another word that you're familiar that is derived from that root bu. BHU, I think, or BHUD. I'm not sure what it is, BHU. That other word is Bodhi. So we talked about Buddhas and Bodhi, right? What is Buddha? Buddha generally is a person, right? When we think about, Shakyamuni Buddha or something like that, or Buddha Maitreya. But the word Buddha itself can just be a verb, to realize. So that's the case here when Chandrakirti wrote in his commentary or in the Sanskrit of the root verses, he wrote Tattva Buddha. That means someone who's realized emptiness, the middling level of those. So there are three kinds of people who realize emptiness, according to Chandrakirti's interpretation of Nagarjuna. The hearers realize emptiness. They realize tattva. They are tattva Buddhas. The Pratika Buddhas, solitary realizers, they realize emptiness. They realize tattva, that it's a synonym for emptiness. They are tattva Buddhas. And the fully enlightened Buddhas realize emptiness. They are tattva Buddhas. All three of them are tattva Buddhas. But the solitary realizers are the middling level of those, right? The hearers are the lowest level of realizing emptiness. In a sense, they accumulate merit for just a few lifetimes. Their minds may not be as sharp as the Pratika Buddhas. The Pratika Buddhas are the middling realizers of emptiness, or middling tattva Buddhas. Somehow, when that line was translated into Tibetan from the Sanskrit, the translators left off, in the Karakas, they left off the word tattva. So they just said middling Buddhas. But the actual meaning is middling realizers of emptiness, middling realizers of tattva. Does that make sense? Mikhail, what do you think? Yeah, okay. Ida, it's okay. Judy, are you awake? Okay, you're awake. Okay, good. Francesca, do you have any question about that? Okay. So with respect to the term Buddha, in middle level Buddhas, whereas that's how it was in Tibetan, right? It's actually the actual Sanskrit says middling realizers of tattva. Some explain this in accordance with the commentary statement: the suchness of a Buddha applies to all three persons, or tattva Buddha applies to all three persons. Whereby the term tattva Buddha, one who has realized suchness, is explained as applicable to all three categories of persons. This is excellent. So if you were just read Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary without some background, it may not, without Jeffrey Hopkins' explanatory paragraph there, he said in Chandrakirti's text, Chandrakirti's root text, that means the Karakas, middling realizers of suchness, or tattva Buddha, was translated into Tibetan as middling Buddhas. So they left off the word tattva there. So this is excellent. As it is stated, tattva refers to suchness, while Buddha means to realize within. The Tibetan word realize within is kongdu chuba. Kongdu means within. So it means deep, really integrating it into your consciousness. The realization of suchness is taken to be the meaning of the term Buddha, the realization. In this interpretation, the term describes all three categories of persons. Tattva Buddhas refers to hearers, solitary realizers, and fully enlightened Buddhas. And so the Sravaka, the Pratika Buddhas are sort of the middle of those three. they're called middling realizers of suchness or thusness. So although the intention here is to say that the term one who has realized suchness applies to Pratika Buddhas as well, the term has been rendered into Tibetan simply as Buddhas. But whereas the term Buddha can be translated as completely enlightened one in general, right? Generally, when we say Buddha, it means completely enlightened one. To do so in the present context would be inappropriate. So in other words, Pratika Buddhas, to call them middling Buddhas misses the point. They're not Buddhas at all in the sense of, being enlightened, fully enlightened Buddhas. They're Buddhas in the sense of realizers. They are middling tattva Buddhas, middling realizers of thusness. In any case, since the term Buddha can also refer to the blossoming of lotus petals or to waking up from sleep, one needs not always translate the term as completely enlightened one. So what does that mean? I think Nadine had asked.
Hi, can you put the package on the elevator, please?
Someone's doorbell rang. So Sister Nadine had asked about this, so she remarked that this was an interesting place in the text. So what is it? Does anyone know what the Tibetan for Buddha is?
Sangye?
Sangye, good, Mary, thank you. Is that right, Stephen? Sangye. So the Tibetans took the etymology of Buddha, it's referring to that person, right? Buddha. They took it as Sangye. So Sang can mean awakened from the sleep of ignorance, and Gepa means developed. Ge means to expand. So that the sort of the etymology that the Tibetans took when they translated Buddha, because Buddha just means, enlightened one or awakened one or something like that. They've taken two different kinds of meanings. One is that he's awakened from ignorance. In other words, has gotten rid of the faults of ignorance and has expanded all the good qualities. Sangye. So when it says here, the term Buddha can be translated as completely enlightened one in general, to do so in the present context would be inappropriate. In any case, since the term Buddha can also refer to the blossoming of lotus petals, that's like Gepa, opening up, or to waking from sleep, that's the Sang of Sangye. One need not always translate the term as the completely enlightened one. Diana, I'm not sure, you might, it makes sense? Yeah, okay. So, is Buddha a person? Francesca, what do you think?
I think yes. I think Buddha is not a sentient being, but they are a person.
Person, yeah. So what about, when you achieve the state of being a Buddha, you have four bodies, right? You have the Dharmakaya, the Svavavikakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. Okay. What about the Svavavikakaya? That's the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. Is that a person? So if you say Sangye, or if you say Buddha, you're referring to all four of those, right? So one of those four is not a person. One of them is just the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. What do we call it? The nature body, right? We say So the Dharma body or truth body, the nature body, the enjoyment body, the emanation body. So that's why when we talk about here, when we talk about these persons, what did we say here? We talked about, I want to see that, where is it? Talked about Arya Buddhas, where the term Buddha can be translated as completely enlightened one in general. To do so in the present context would be inappropriate. In any case, since the term Buddha can also refer to the blossoming of lotus petals, like Geba, or to waking from sleep, Tsong, one needs not always translate the term as completely enlightened one. Oh, is that bird in my place or is this one of yours?
No, it was in my garden.
In your garden. So I'm trying to find the place. So generally, when we talk about Buddha as a person, we have to say Arya Buddha. So an Arya Buddha refers to of those four categories of Buddhas, those that are persons. Okay.
But Venerable, sorry.
Yeah.
An ordinary being also has a mind that is empty.
Yes, that's true.
So the emptiness of the mind also refers to any being.
Right, that's true. But when we talk about Buddha, if we just say Buddha, we don't say Arya Buddha, we refer to those four different bodies. When we say Francesca, generally we're not referring to the emptiness of Francesca's mind, which is called her Buddha nature, non-abiding Buddha potential or Buddha nature, right? We don't generally that's not what's referred to when we say Francesca. So they're a little bit different in the case of the Buddha. Okay. So then continuing, the meaning of middle level or middling, when we talk about middle level Buddhas or middling realizers of suchness, tattva Buddha, that's what it should be. As I said before, the translation into Tibetan left off the word tattva. They just said middling Buddha. The meaning of middle level or middling in this is this. Pratika Buddhas, because of their distinction in having cultivated merit and wisdom for 100 eons, are superior to the Srabakas. So they have a greater accumulation of wisdom, a greater accumulation rather, of merit, because they've done it for much longer. You'd expect that, right? Since they lack the dual collections of merit and wisdom, the great compassion that extends to all beings at all times, and they lack the complete knowledge of all aspects of phenomena, however, they are inferior to the Buddhas. Thus, they are thus of the middle level. They are thus middling. They're superior to the hearers. They've accumulated merit and wisdom longer, but they don't have the actual collection of merit and wisdom. What's the difference there? Paul, what is it? Why do hearers and solitary realizers why do they not have the collection of merit or wisdom? Do you know?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, so it's going to be coming up here somewhere in the quite soon. Generally, for something to be a collection, not just an accumulation of merit, accumulation of wisdom, but to be a collection, it has to have, it has to form a basis to lead to great enlightenment. And the accumulation of merit and wisdom of the Sravikas and the Pratika Buddhas do not constitute that. They don't form a basis to lead to full enlightenment at that point. So they're just called accumulations rather than collections. When we talk about Sangi Chudang Suki, Chognam La, Jangchu Bardu, Dagni Kapsuchi, Dagi Jinso Gipe, Sognam Ki in our prayer, or Chunen Sognam Ki, due to the collections. Sog means in that case a collection of merit and wisdom. May I become a Buddha. Whereas the solitary realizers, the hearers and solitary realizers have accumulations of merit and wisdom, but they're not called collections of merit and wisdom.
So venerable?
Yes.
So this collection is the same one when we say sambhara, sambhara, that is also the same collection, correct?
So I think just in a couple of pages, let's see where it is coming. Yeah, so a little further down, it says, here collection applies to those factors that uphold the fruit, unsurpassed awakening. Maybe a couple of paragraphs below that. Here collection applies to those factors that uphold the fruit, unsurpassed awakening, that result.
Oh, I see, yes, okay.
The methods that accomplish it without distortion. Hence, the term refers to merit and wisdom that embody this meaning. Those not encompassed by this meaning are only ordinary collections or accumulations. You could still call them collections, but they're not the actual collection of a bodhisattva. This connotation of the term comes from the etymology of samsara, which is the Sanskrit word for collection. So that's your memory is right when you were saying samsara, right? So therefore the commentary, I'll go back, therefore the commentary describes Pratika Buddhas as superior in their advancement in wisdom, superior meaning their ever-enhancing progression on the path. Wait, I guess I skipped something there. Oh yeah, I skipped something. Let me go back. The meaning of middle level is this. Pratika Buddhas, because of their distinction in having cultivated merit and wisdom for 100 eons, are superior to the Sravikas, but they're inferior to the Buddhas because they lack the dual collections of merit and wisdom. They just have mere collections or accumulations of merit and wisdom. They lack great compassion. Is that right? Don't Sravikas, don't Pratika Buddhas have great compassion? Don? You can press your space bar to unmute. Or you don't want to. Just press your space bar. Hold it down. No, doesn't work? Maybe it's the same thing. There you go.
There. So I think they have great compassion, but they don't have the great resolve that a bodhisattva has.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. So what's the great resolve? What's the term that we know from Tibetan? In the 7 factors of cause and effect, we talk about recognizing all sentient beings as mother, remembering their kindness, developing the wish to repay their kindness, heartwarming love, great compassion, then great resolve, laksam, that's the 6th, and then bodhicitta, right? So that's what you're thinking of. So you think they have great compassion, but they don't have laksam. They don't have the superior intention. So that's a good explanation. Apparently, I don't know about Gomang, but between Sarajay and Drebung, one of their tenet writers say that the hearers and solitary realizers do not have great compassion. They have immeasurable compassion. When we talk about the 4 immeasurables, great compassion in that point of view means taking the responsibility to alleviate that suffering. Whereas the other textbook writer for Drebung and Sarah say that the hearers do have great compassion, like you say, but they don't have the superior intention that takes the responsibility to eliminate that suffering. So you can go either way. Make sense? What do you think? Doris, does that make sense to you? Yeah, okay. Where is Nadine? Making sense, Nadine? Okay. So the meaning of middle level is this: Pratika Buddhas, because of their distinction in having cultivated merit and wisdom for 100 eons, are superior to the Sravikas, but since they lack the dual collections of merit and wisdom, they just have mere collections, they lack the great compassion that extends to all beings at all times. And when I question some of my Dharma friends about this, scholars and so forth, they said they didn't know, they didn't understand what was meant here, great compassion that extends to all beings at all times. I think the implication there is that, a Buddha is constantly in meditative equipoise on emptiness, right? There's never a moment when a Buddha's mind is not in meditative equipoise on emptiness. There is also not a moment when a Buddha's mind is not engaged in great compassion. All the time. Whereas hearers and solitary realizers, even if you say they have great compassion, you debate with Don whether it's they have great compassion or they have the superior intention. Let's say you say they have great compassion, but their great compassion is not functioning all the time. When they're in meditative equipoise on emptiness, their compassion is not thinking about sentient beings because they don't realize the two levels of truth at the same time. There may be times when they go to sleep and their great compassion is not active. So to me, this statement here that they lack the great compassion that extends to all beings at all times is something that would, the solitary realizers, the Pratika Buddhists, they're great, even if you say they have great compassion, you say, oh no, they don't just have immeasurable compassion. I want to say they have great compassion. It doesn't apply to all beings at all times. And they lack complete knowledge of all aspects of phenomena. What is that? Karen, have you heard that expression before? Complete knowledge of all aspects.
No, but
No?
would that be conventional and ultimate natures of all at one time?
Yeah,
And they lack that.
It's a synonym in those of you who are studying with Sangye Khandro, the 70 topics. Who is Doris? What is the knowledge of all aspects? Here it says complete knowledge, or you could just say knowledge of all aspects. Kunken, Lama Usel's brother, when I taught him at Sarah, his brother's name was Kunken. Kun means all, or Nampa Kundu, that means all aspects, and Ken is honorific word for knowing. So Thupten Jinpa says complete knowledge of all aspects of phenomena. So that's another synonym of omniscience. Nampa means aspects. Tamche means all. Kempa means knowledge or knower, the knower of all aspects of phenomena. So that means it knows impermanence, it knows emptiness, it knows, hot and cold, everything at the same time, all aspects of all phenomena. That's another synonym. Well, you could say that is what we translate as omniscience. Complete knowledge of all aspects of phenomena. However, because they lack those three things, they are inferior to the Buddhas. Thus, they are of middling level. Then some, again, Jayananda, say that the nature of their superior to the Sravikas in terms of gnosis, in terms of wisdom, this special wisdom, is explained in the line from the Abi Samaya Alamkara. I don't know, some of you, if you're studying with Sangye Kondo, the 70 topics is talking about the eight chapters, 8 categories of the Abi Samaya Alamkara. There's sort of like chapters. And then within those 8 categories or 8 chapters, there are 70 particular topics. So the Abi Samaya Alamkara was a text that was taught to a Sangha by Maitreya in Tushita heaven when a Sangha went up there for a couple of days, 50 years on earth. And when he came back, he brought back these 5 texts of Maitreya, one of which was the Abi Samaya Alamkara, or ornament of clear realizations. So in that text, which seems to be on the surface from the Svatantrika Madhyamaka point of view, not from the Prasankika Madhyamaka point of view, there's a statement that says, because they have overcome objective conceptualization. Jeffrey Hopkins translates that stanza from the Abi Samaya Alamkara. He says, they abandoned the conception of objects. If you, Don, I think you're going to get that book. If you haven't gotten it yet, it's on page 104. You can make a note. Don said he's ordered a copy of that book by Jeffrey Hopkins. So on page 104, he says, they abandoned the conception of objects. And then by means of commentary, Jeffrey adds in parentheses, by realizing that object and subject are not different entities. That almost sounds like Chittamatra view, right? That the object and the subject are devoid of being different entities from the Chittamatra point of view. Whereas in the Abi Samaya Alamkara, it's not talking from the Chittamatra point of view. It's talking about from the Svatantrika Madhyamaka point of view, which has some common tenets with that. So it says, so in this case, Jayananda is saying that's, how does he say? Jayananda says that the meaning of solitary realizers surpassing hearers in terms of wisdom should be understood in accordance with Maitreya's statement in his Ornament of Clear Realizations, Abi Samaya Alamkara, quote, they abandoned the conception of objects. So what does that mean? Is that it's not the whole stanza. It's saying by realizing that object and subject are not different entities. So they abandoned the conception of objects which are of a different entity from the mind. That's the statement from Abi Samaya Alamkara. This is not correct. Because here in the Prasankika system, it is said that both hearers and solitary realizers realize that all phenomena do not inherently exist. And as a matter of fact, Jayananda himself asserts this later in the text when he says that hearers and solitary realizers cognize or realize the emptiness of all phenomena. Or in Jimpa's commentary here, some say that the nature of their superiority to the Sravikas, that is why the Pratika Buddhas are superior, is in terms of gnosis or wisdom, is explained in the line, because they have overcome objective conceptualization. That means they've overcome the idea that there are actual objects that are different entities from the mind. This is incorrect, Lama Tsongkhapa says. In this Chandrakirti's tradition, both Sravikas and Pratika Buddhas are understood to possess the realization that all phenomena lack intrinsic existence. Furthermore, the one who makes the assertion above, that means Jayananda, appears to himself uphold this very tenet of Chandrakirti. That's what I read before, that later in Jayananda's commentary, he says both the hearers and solitary realizers realize the non-inherent nature of all phenomena. Therefore, the commentary describes Pratika Buddhas as superior in their advancement in wisdom, superior meaning they're ever enhancing progression on the path. They're superior to the hearers in wisdom, not because they've realized a deeper emptiness, they realize the same emptiness, but they have a advancement in their wisdom, superior meaning they're ever enhancing progression on the path. They immerse themselves in the accumulation of merit and wisdom for 100 eons, right? Pratika Buddhas, solitary realizers. Sravikas, on the other hand, are incapable of sustaining such a prolonged cultivation of the path. They peter out after 16 lifetimes if they haven't achieved hearers, if they haven't achieved nirvana, they lose their renunciation, and they might have to start again from scratch in some life in the future. I just want to mention two other things here before we stop. So this is essentially where we're ending right now. They immerse themselves in the accumulation of merit and wisdom for 100 eons. Sravikas, on the other hand, are incapable of sustaining such a prolonged cultivation of the path. So another name, as we'll see later, for the Pratika Buddhas is Swayambhu. Do you know what Swayambhu means? Richard, have you ever heard the term Swayambhu? Have you ever been to Nepal?
No, I'm afraid not.
There are two big stupas in Kathmandu, one called Swayambhu or Swayambhunath, and one called Bodhanath. Near the Kopan monastery, the Bodhanath is nearer Kopan. Swayambhu is sometimes called the monkey temple on the other side of Kathmandu, up on a mountain where there's a lot of monkeys around. They call it the monkey temple. Both of them supposedly date back, both of those stupas date back to previous Buddhas before Shakyamuni, where relics of those Buddhas were enshrined. So Swayambhu means self-arisen. Self-arisen can mean different things. Like, for instance, sometimes, like in Parping, some of you know, there's a holy place outside of Kathmandu called Parping, where there's a wall where over the years and months, what looks like images of Tara have seemed to be coming out of the wall. Have you heard of that? Paul, did you see that when you were in Kathmandu?
Well, I saw that in Kathmandu. I never made it to Parping, though, unfortunately.
Okay, so those are called self-arisen. When we were visiting the Potala with Lama Zopa Rinpoche many years ago in Tibet, and Sayenla, Yangtze Rinpoche's sister, the great translator, Sayenla, we were in the basement looking at these statues with a whole group of people, and this one man said, this statue, I think it was of Tara, is self-arisen, Swayambhu, sort of just arose by itself. And I said, that's too perfect, that's not. And she said, no, that's self-arisen. And then the guide said, but this is just a duplicate of that. This is not self-arisen. So when I told Geshe Zopa about that, I was creating negative karma by demeaning Sayenla's faith that this was self-arisen. And Geshe Zopa said, you shouldn't demean someone like that. Faith is something that clarifies the mind and allows you to create virtuous karma and so forth. But this is another name for Pratika Buddhas, because in their last lifetime, they arise by themselves to their goal of nirvana, right? To their Pratika Buddha realization. So that will be coming a little bit later in the text. So before we end, some of you may want to go off, but anyone that might be going off have a question that you want to ask before we do dedication? Shanka, yeah.
No, we can wait till dedication.
Okay. So Sheila, do you want to put up the dedication prayers again? Okay. Go down, go down, go down. Dedication, there we go. Due to the merits of these virtues, just due to these virtues, this is gewadi, due to these virtues, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all migrating beings without exception into that very enlightened state. So this is the essence of the dedication, conventional dedication, trying to link the merits that we've created today, and even in the past, even in the future, making a strong resolve that they ripen in the state of our achieving the state of Buddhahood, being a Guru Buddha, in order to lead all sentient beings without leaving anyone out to that very same state. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And then for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, prayer for his long life, you who uphold the Muni's moral code. Remember Muni, meaning the sage or the controlled one, meaning the Shakyamuni. You who uphold the Muni's moral code, serving as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, masterfully accomplishing magnificent prayers, honoring the three jewels, savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And a general prayer for all our spiritual friends, eyes viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateway for the fortunate traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love. All illuminating spiritual friends, please live a long and stable life. Okay. So those of you who have to depart, like when you, at the end of the pujas, you offer the torma, and then you say, the worldly beings depart to their own realms, and the wisdom beings absorb into me. So those of you, you are the wisdom beings still here. So anyone have any question that they'd like to ask?
Yeah, Venerable?
Yes.
So I'm just trying to understand the last paragraph that you discussed. So the objective conceptualization you said sounds like the Chittamatra school, right? But it's not. This is what I'm assuming. This is my interpretation is correct. It's not because of what Lama Tsongkhapa says. This is incorrect. In this tradition, they are understood to possess the realization that all phenomena lack intrinsic existence, but they're not called superior because, but they're not called superior because they have. I'm confused. I guess somewhere I'm missing something.
So Jayananda tries to take this stanza from the Abi Samaya Alamkara. And that stanza makes sense in the Abi Samaya Alamkara world. It's mainly talking about the Svatantrika Madhyamaka view, which is not the Prasangika view. For certain Svatantrikas, the Pratika Buddhas are superior to the hearers because they haven't just realized the lack of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, which the hearers realize. That's according to the lower tenets, that's the special sauce that allows them to achieve Sravaka nirvana. but the Pratika Buddhas have understood something different, sort of like an intermediate emptiness, that phenomena, external, would appear to be external phenomena, and the minds cognizing them are empty of being different entities. They're essentially all phenomena are mind only. Now that's a basic tenet of the Chittamatra school, but it is also shared with certain Svatantrikas. So Jayananda is trying to say the hearers realize, the emptiness or the lack of self-supporting, substantially existent person. The Pratika Buddhas realize that, but in addition, they realize that phenomena are empty of being different entities from the mind. That like my air conditioner and my mind arise from one seed. They're the same entity. And that the Buddhas realize, the Bodhisattvas, as they get closer to Buddhahood, realize the emptiness of inherent existence. So Lama Tsongkhapa says that's puba, that's baloney, that's not right. You remember puba? I don't know. I remember that from Mad magazine when I was a kid. For the Prasangika, the hearers realize emptiness of inherent existence. The Pratika Buddhas realize the emptiness of inherent existence, and the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas realize the emptiness of inherent existence. So that he's calling up that particular verse because Jayananda, in his commentary to Madhyamaka, tried to say that's why the Pratika Buddhas were superior to the hearers. Does that help, Shankar?
I think so. I have to think about it a little bit more.
Okay, good. You think about that. Okay, Stephen?
Oh, and just to add on to Shankar's great question, what Venerable Sangye Kadro told us also about the Pratyeka Buddhas and the Abi Samaya Alamkara was that they also realized, they had eliminated rather the coarse obstructions to omniscience. That school positing that there are both coarse and subtle obstructions to omniscience, and they're realized before the 8th round. So I don't know if that helps at all or just even confuses.
So that in certain ways that posits the emptiness of form and form realizing consciousness being different subjects as being a coarse obstruction to omniscience. They also have in their school also they have another meaning of that. But okay, good point. Mintu, nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. And it's funny, I just came back from a meditation retreat and we actually met for the first time in my life. Someone spontaneously make the aspiration to be a Pratyeka Buddha, and this person actually didn't study much about the scripture. He said, "Oh, I want to become a Pratyeka Buddha." I say, "Well, how would you imagine it to be?" And he said that, "Oh, I imagine it to be like a rhinoceros." I was like, "You are actually correct. That's what the Buddha described a solitary realizer is to be a rhinoceros."
Right. Well, certain solitary realizers, the main meaning of that is that in their last life, they want to be Swayambhu. They want to achieve their enlightenment without teaching Buddhas. But there are different kinds of solitary realizers. Some of them are like, they say rhinoceros-like. What that means is supposedly in the Indian tradition where, the Chandrakirti and Nagarjuna and the Buddha came from, the rhinoceri, is that right, for plural? Generally would only just be their small group, their little family. They wouldn't have herds of rhinoceri. So there are other kinds of congregating Pratika Buddhas also. So not all Pratika Buddhas were of the rhinoceros type.
Yes, yeah. And
Okay.
but that is what I was reading the scripture is that, well, I have never seen anybody who make the aspiration to be a Pratika Buddha until now, and that was
There you go. Yeah. Well,
shocking
probably.
stuff.
Yeah, probably in our Dharma groups, we may not know anyone that wanted to achieve nirvana. We're just immersed in the Mahayana, but that is a viable goal. So, Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi, Venerable George. I'm just curious, is it the Tsongkhapa's objection, the reason he's saying this is incorrect, is it just because he's saying, well, Jayananda is giving a Svatantrika meaning, whereas we're talking about Prasangika? Chandrakirti is talking about Prasangika, and Jayananda is giving a Svatantrika reason? Is that why Tsongkhapa is rejecting it?
Yeah, partially. Jayananda, Lama Tsongkhapa criticizes Jayananda in a lot of places about emptiness. Jayananda is not on the same page, let's say, Lama Tsongkhapa's interpretation of Chandrakirti. And his bringing up this, what would we say, kind of like red herring, this verse from the Abi Samaya Alamkara is actually talking about the Svatantrika point of view, whereas later in the text, Jayananda does say that the hearers and solitary realizers do both realize the absence of inherent existence. So it's not just that the Pratika Buddhas would be superior to the hearers in terms of wisdom, in that they realize that particular Svatantrika tenet. Okay.
Thank you.
Richard.
Yes, hi, Venerable George. I had a question about how the Pratika Buddhas and the Sravakas relate to the whole idea of the afflictive obscurations and the knowledge obscurations. I was wondering, is it the case? Have the Sravakas and the Pratika Buddhas eliminated the afflictive obscurations, but not yet the knowledge obscurations, or have they not eliminated any?
They definitely, if you talk about the arhats, the end of those paths, the Sravaka arhats and the Pratika Buddha arhats have eliminated the obstructions, what do we call the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to liberation. Both names are applicable. They're the obstructions that prevent one from achieving liberation from cyclic existence. They're the obstructions that keep you from achieving nirvana. They both achieved those if they're arhats, but neither of them have even begun to eliminate the obstructions to omniscience. To begin to eliminate those, one has to be on the bodhisattva path on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, what are called the pure bhumis, the pure levels, just before achievement of enlightenment. At the end of the 7th bhumi, the bodhisattvas have achieved abandonment, elimination of all of the obstructions to liberation. And then on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, according to Prasangika, they begin to eliminate the obstructions to omniscience due to the fact that they have a mind meditating on emptiness sustained by bodhicitta. The two are kind of like are necessary to eliminate the obstructions to omniscience. Just the realization of emptiness itself, along with renunciation, is sufficient to abandon and eliminate all the obstructions to liberation. But if you add the component of bodhicitta to that, in my mind, I kind of see it as the airs, when we talk about Tantra, the winds that support the mind are extending to all sentient beings in all places. And that allows one to eliminate those obstructions to seeing all times and places and both levels of truth at the same time. Okay. Jennifer, good to see your hand up.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you, Venerable George. I just have a question, I guess related to that, because someone said that Pratyeka Buddhas could have eradicated coarse obscurations to omniscience, but not subtle. And if that's the case, then would they benefit anybody in the process?
Well, the tenet system that accepts that they have they have abandoned the gross obstacles to omniscience, that's not the Prasangika system. So
okay.
that's the one particular variation of the Svatantrika. Even in, I think it's the Yogacara Svatantrika, if I'm not mistaken, which have similarities with the Yogacara or Chittamatra school. So the Abi Samaya Alamkara seems to be on the surface written from that point of view, explaining this, the Yogacara Svatantrika, whereas there are certain statements in the Abi Samaya Alamkara that seem to indicate that its final view is Prasangika, although generally when you study the 70 topics, it's talked about from the Yogacara Svatantrika point of view.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And Mintu, you have a second go. You have a second follow-up, like they say at the news conferences.
Oh, I guess I have a question. So isn't that it's in the scripture they say that like eventually all solitary realizer and hero will also become Buddha at some point, like fully enlightened Buddha?
Again, say again.
Is there like certain scripture that say that eventually all solitary realizer and hero will become fully awakened?
Right. But not for a long time. They remain in meditative equipoise and emptiness in their state of nirvana for many, many eons. And it's only when the karma of their samadhi, of their concentration begins to diminish, that they can be awakened by the Buddhas and informed that they have not yet done what has to be done, you might say. You know, they did what had to be done to achieve nirvana, but they haven't done what has to be done to achieve enlightenment. And the Buddhas encourage them to take rebirth again in cyclic existence by activating karmic seeds in their mind stream through prayer and to follow the bodhisattva path, accumulating merit, generating bodhicitta, which may take them a long time because they had been, we might think, oh, I could achieve bodhicitta in a couple of lifetimes. Maybe someone thinks they could achieve bodhicitta this lifetime. It's very, very, very difficult to actually actualize actual bodhicitta, but we might think we could do it in some period of time. For the hearers, a solitary realizer, arhats, takes them even longer because they had been so self-centered in achieving their own goal before that. So it takes them, even though they've realized emptiness already, that's only one component. They have to develop great compassion, takes the responsibility to benefit sentient beings, to lead them out of samsara and bodhicitta and so forth, to aim for enlightenment. Okay. So good questions. Anyone else have anything? If not, I thank you for your patience. I've sent Sheila, who somehow is going to get to you, some questions if you hold discussion group. One other thing, in that list of questions, if you take a look at it, even if you're not attending the group, there's one thing I suggested you memorize this stanza from the Abi Samaya Alamkara, actually half a stanza. In Tibetan, it's Semke Pani Shendon Chir, Yangdak Zokbe Jangchub De. Does anyone know what that is? Paul will know, of course. Stephen, do you know? Yeah, that's in the Abi Samaya Alamkara, very famous definition of bodhicitta. Semke pa means generating the mind. That's mind generation is a synonym of bodhicitta. Okay, so semke pani, that means bodhicitta is, or mind generation is, yangdak zukbe semke pani shendon shir means for the benefit of others. Yangdak zukbe jangshubde, to desire perfect enlightenment. So the two factors, bodhicitta is the wish to, for the benefit of sentient beings, the wish to achieve enlightenment. The goal, the object of attainment is enlightenment, and the motivating factor is out of the desire to benefit sentient beings. In other words, great compassion and so forth. So if you have a chance to memorize that, I also put the Sanskrit of that line down. I remember when I was studying many years ago in Manjushri Institute, and Geshe Tekchok was teaching us. I came to his room and tried to memorize verses from the Abi Samaya Alamkara, which pleased him very much because it leaves some imprint in your mind. So that would be a very nice verse to memorize, either in Tibetan or Sanskrit. So look forward to seeing you again next time. Oh, Diana has a question.
No, I didn't have a question. Thank you, Venerable.
Diana, if you press the space bar, you'll unmute automatically while you hold the space bar down.
Are you? Which Diana? There's two Dianas.
Oh, okay.
One raising her hand.
Okay, that's this Diana. Okay, not Diana Whittington. Diana, yeah.
Could you please, thank you very much. And could you please explain again why you were substituting or correcting from the phrase sentient beings, you were instead using migrating beings?
Right. The Tibetan in those prayers is drowa. Drowa is like gati, those who are like we say in the Heart Sutra, gati para samgoti, gone beyond. All of the I mentioned in some of the other classes, I find fascinating. You guys may not find fascinating at all. Certain basic words are irregular verbs in almost all of the Indo-European languages, like the verb to go, go, went, gone, and so forth. So when we talk about migrators, you could say goers, those who are moving throughout cyclic existence. So in a sense, that's a synonym of sentient being, but the word for sentient being usually is semchen, someone who possesses mind. Sem means mind, chen means having. In Sanskrit, it's just the word sattva. Sattva itself, like we talk about bodhisattva, sattva has two different meanings. Sattva can just mean sentient being. That's what the Tibetans translated as semchen. Or like great being who is aiming for enlightenment when we talk about bodhisattva and so forth. But the word migrator is different than the word sentient being. It doesn't have the sense of just having mind or sentience. It has the sense of migrating through the 6 realms of cyclic existence. And that's how the prayers are written. That when I've substituted the word migrators for sentient beings.
Is there a Venn diagram relationship? Is one a subset of the other? Do they overlap? Are they contiguous?
I think they are coextensive. I think they are, if someone is a migrator, one is a sentient being. Sentient beings include all beings other than Buddhas. Buddhas are not called sentient beings because when we talk about sentient being or semchen, It means having a mind that is still not perfect. So sentient being includes everyone except for Buddhas. Migrating beings would not include the arhats. So they're not, I misspoke, they're not coextensive. Migrators would be people who are still under the influence of karma and delusion and taking rebirth within cyclic existence. So the hearer and solitary realizer arhats are no longer migrators. Okay.
Thank you.
So good questions. One last question from Violet. Hi, Violet.
Hi, Venerable. Thank you. I'd like to know what's the difference between immeasurable compassion and great compassion.
So immeasurable compassion is, when we were talking earlier, immeasurable compassion, when we talk about the four immeasurables, like may all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. That is generally what is called immeasurable compassion, right? There's immeasurable love. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the cause of happiness, immeasurable equanimity, and immeasurable joy. So immeasurable compassion is usually what is said that the hearers and solitary realizers cultivate. They do have compassion, but depending on your philosophical view, if you accept that great compassion takes the responsibility to alleviate that suffering, then the hearers and solitary realizers don't have great compassion. They have compassion that goes to all sentient beings, all types of suffering, even the most subtle types of suffering. Okay? So we'll leave it there. Have a good weekend. Hope to see you again next week. And we'll continue on from then. Then I think after that, we'll have a week break, and then we'll have the month of July with 4 more classes. I think we'll start to make some headway into the text.